Hey guys, welcome back. It's Missy. You know how you have to deal with like really difficult people, or maybe someone in your life, they'll get really egotistical or they get very defensive and they get in their ego and you don't know how to deal with them? Well, today we're going to talk about how to deal with someone when they're in their ego, because there's a few things you can do so that way you don't get dragged down or you don't get stressed dealing with them. So let's understand ego. Ego is a protective mechanism. It is a shield to protect ourselves from any insecurities or pain. It's a mask. It's a mask we put on to prevent other people from seeing our vulnerabilities or deep insecurities that we don't want to come out. These are things that we haven't been able to process and acknowledge, and we haven't been able to work through. Everyone has an ego. We all get in our ego sometimes. Some of us have more of an ego than others, and it all depends on your upbringing of how much pain and how many insecurities you have and how you've dealt with those insecurities and what you felt you needed to do to protect yourself from any vulnerabilities. So we all have moments where we get in our ego or we respond off of our ego, and it's usually triggered by something, and usually that thing that triggers us is something that makes us feel insecure or vulnerable, and it can make us difficult to work with, very defensive. We will shut down, we'll be hard to talk to, we will twist things or we will misinterpret things, and we'll add our own perspective onto it when that may not be the case at all. So people who have huge egos or people who have very much bruised egos are not bad people. They're just very hurt, insecure people. They haven't done the necessary healing work so they can live as their authentic selves and live outside of their insecurities. So anyone can have a bruised or hurt ego. It does not discriminate. It could be a partner you have, it could be a boss, it could be a coworker, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be anyone in your life. Now there's another thing we have to keep in mind. Oftentimes, narcissists solely live off of their ego. So there's people that can get egotistical and they have moments when they live in their ego or they react off of their ego. And then there are the narcissists that straight off are just ego-based. Like everything they do is based on filling their ego and trying to hide their deep shame and all their insecurities. But you don't have to be a narcissist to have an ego problem. All narcissists live off their ego, but not all people who have huge egos are narcissists. So what are some signs of an egotistical person? They will be overly confident without reason. So it always seems like they have to prove themselves or brag or say the things that they can do. They always want everyone to know how good they are in general or how good they are at specific things. And they say it a lot to the point where it's suspicious of, why do you have to say it so often? Is it because you don't really believe that you're good or you're good at these things? And they may not even be that good. They could be good or they may not even be that good, and they over exaggerate how good they actually are because they feel insecure about where they're at. Next one is they don't take criticism well. If you try to criticism or you challenge them in any sort of way, they immediately get defensive. They go on the attack. They don't humbly accept what you're saying. They immediately have to defend their character themselves and even place the blame on you. And they also will get angry if people don't notice the things they're doing or if they don't get praised. So if you bring up negatives and not the positives, they immediately will get egotistical. The next is they don't include others. So they're not a good team player. They try to make decisions on their own, do everything on their own. They don't take advice, suggestions, or feedback. They have to be the leader and they have to be the one that has a say in everything. And they have to feel like they're the loudest voice. The next is they're overly competitive. Even if something's not a competition, they will find a way to make it a competition. They have to be the best and the first, and they have to let others know that they are the best or the first. Like, I won, oh, I did this first, or oh, you have to catch up to me. Is again always feeling the need to prove themselves, and the only way they prove themselves is making sure that they're at the top and that they're better than everyone else in the room. And then last is they blame others. So they don't take accountability even if something is blatantly their fault. They point their fingers at others. They'll make excuses like, I wouldn't have made this mistake if so-and-so didn't do this. Or oh, like, I didn't even know that was something that I had to do, so it's not my fault at all. Even though, like, the instructions were very clear. Just any way they can make sure that they don't look like the bad guy, they will do that. They will try to deflect as much as possible and turn it around on others. And all these things are because of those deep insecurities. A secure person is able to welcome other people's and take feedback and criticism and be a part of a team. And they don't always need to prove that they're the best. Someone that's incredibly insecure needs to feel like they're the best because deep down they feel worthless and empty. And also someone who's very secure has no problem taking accountability for things because they know the good and the bad they provide, and they're able to take their mistakes and learn from them. So now that we understand someone who lives off of their ego, how do you deal with this person? So first I want to say it is not your job to fix them. But if you have someone in your life that periodically, responds off their ego, they get very defensive, because again, like I said, they're not bad people. If it's a narcissist, then get rid of them. But if someone, periodically they get defensive, they, don't deal with their triggers well, that's fine. We all have our, issues. So you don't, like I said, it's not your job to fix them, but you can influence them to behave in a certain way so you don't get the backlash of their ego. So first thing is, you probably have an idea of what this person or these people's triggers are, and if you're not already, get an idea and become aware. Take note of when this person does become defensive or reactive, or when they start to get egotistical, because when you become aware of this person and when they're triggered, then it will be easier for you to use the tools we're about to talk about, and you'll need to be a little bit more sensitive during this time, so that way you don't also get dragged down with them and go on the defense as well. So first thing is, probably when you need to bring up something uncomfortable or negative, if you need to confront them about something, which is a big trigger for people who are egotistical, first start with something positive, or start with a compliment. Studies show people are way more willing and open to hearing what someone has to say if it's negative, if you start with something opening and positive. They're like, oh, you stroked my ego a little bit, now I want to open up and listen. So you want to do that rather than immediately going to the negative or challenging them. Then after, that's when you can address your points, and you want to be really assertive, that's really important, and address, the issues. And then express what you would like to change. So that's only the beginning. That's not foolproof. This is what you'll do if they start to get in their ego, because that's only the opening. That can lessen the blow. So you have to understand, with ego, it's all insecurity based, which means they don't feel secure. And what happens when people don't feel secure? They get defensive and they try to protect themselves. So what you want to do is make this person not feel threatened. So what you can do is, when they start to get threatened or they start to get defensive, say, hey, listen, I'm on your side. I'm on the same team. I'm not saying these things to hurt you. I just need to address X, Y, and Z so it can be easier for the both of us, yada, yada. This most of the times makes them feel less threatened, and it lets their walls down, because they're like, okay, this person isn't attacking me. We're on a team. And they may realize they're overreacting because of your kindness and your compassion. They went in expecting to fight you, but you came with compassion and kindness, and now they feel a little silly. They don't have ammo. Another point we have to add is, don't back down or retract what you say. You have to stand your ground. So only say it if you mean it. If you retract or you respond off of their defensiveness, then they learn, oh, it's okay to treat you this way, and their ego gets bigger, and they think they can disrespect or mistreat you. You are not a punching bag or a target for their anger or their insecurities and ego, so don't act like you are. The best way to have someone face their own ego, which can be very helpful for someone that contradicts themselves, is point out their contradictions. Point out that their actions do not match their words. I have to do this often with my clients because we deal with really sensitive topics. Sometimes their ego comes out. Love them to death. Don't take it personally. But sometimes their ego does come out and they get a little defensive or they get a little upset. And I say, okay, let's face this. Okay, let's say you're correct, right? But if that's true, then why do your actions different than your words? How does that make sense? And then they sit back and then they have to deal with that cognitive dissonance, and they're like, wait a minute, something isn't right, something doesn't make sense, and then they have to face it. And so the same thing with someone who's a little egotistical, that can self-reflect, that's not a narcissist, will see that when you point out the contradictions in their behavior and their words. They do have to face it. The next point is, don't take it personally. And this can be really hard because sometimes it can feel personal, but it's not at all. Think about a little kid when they're scared. when a kid's scared, they'll get aggressive, or they'll say mean words, or they'll throw a tantrum. But oftentimes you don't take it personally because you're aware that they're a kid and they don't know how to deal with these feelings. That's the same thing when someone is in their ego. They're basically in their childlike state. The way that they deal with their insecurities as pain is childish, and their protective childlike response is coming out. So when you see it from that angle, you see that they're coming from a hurt, scared child place, you will take it less personally. It doesn't mean that they're not an adult that has to be held accountable, and it doesn't mean you have to take their abuse. That's not what it means. It means for you to personally understand, hey, they're just a scared inner child, or they're incredibly insecure and it's not a person at all. You're able to put that wall up so you don't take in their negative feelings and get dragged down by it. And then the last thing is, if they do get abusive or it gets too much, don't be afraid to call the behavior and walk away. Say, hey, listen, your ego is getting in the way and you're getting too defensive and you're getting abusive or X, Y, and Z, and I'm not going to tolerate this, so I'm going to leave until you treat me with respect, or until you do this or that or whatever it is. And they have to face the consequences, because oftentimes we don't learn how bad our behavior is until there's a natural consequence, which is when people leave or they don't want to talk to you. And so they'll have to face that if they don't want to change, or if they don't want to, you know, hear you out, or they don't want to do that self-work. They have to do that self-work in order to be in your life, or they have to at least acknowledge that they have some type of issue. Because like I said, everyone has their own issues, but it doesn't mean you have to take their abuse. There needs to be a common ground where everyone is acknowledging of their issues and they're willing to work on it. They're not going to be perfect, but they're willing to work on it and hear you out. And you can walk away anytime it gets too much. And especially with work, if, you know, shit hits the fan, let go of the situation and just walk away. Let them have their way. Sometimes it's better to wave the white flag than battle it out. So pick and choose your battles wisely. So what do you guys think? Leave it on the comments below, and please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with someone that you think may need it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye guys. Did my computer freeze? Hey brother. Oh, is it recording? Okay. Why is my eye bugging out? I'm literally having an adrenaline rush right now. Let's see if I can get through this without being jittery. I'm so shaky. Also, I literally could not fall asleep until like 7 a.m. this morning. I was like tossing and turning. Slept 2 hours, so I may be a little bit off. I don't even know if off's the word. I may be a little bit slow. Forget my words. I'm gonna jumble them. So those are my excuses. Am I so weird? I'm literally so weird.